Bonn Park is supported by Taco Farm. Mexican-inspired and locally sourced, Taco Farm celebrates one of the world's great cuisines while supporting small local farms right here in Waterloo region. Taco Farm makes everything in-house, from their famous tortillas to their fiery hot sauces, bar mixes, and infusions. Mouth-watering appetizers like their big, delicious bowl of fries supreme are perfect for sharing, made with hand-cut russets, con queso, jalapenos, tomato radish salsa, and creamy farm sauce. With aromatic seasonings and citrus hits, Taco Farm brings every one of their dishes to life with fresh ingredients and a balance of distinct, refreshing flavors, like their Roadhouse nachos, house-smoked chicken wings, and taco bowls, bursting with delicious Mexican flavor. Or try the whole enchilada. That's a choice of meat, fish, or veggies wrapped in tortillas with beans, salsa, and many special toppings. Oh, and everything is gluten-free, except that is for the melt-in-your-mouth dessert churro, warm and sugary and crispy, but full of gluten. The rest, no gluten. They also have margarita kits for takeaway and a bigger tequila selection than the LCB Olé. Then there's Taco Farm's newest initiative, Sid and Hilda's Cocina, happening every Friday to Sunday when chefs Sid and Hilda dive into the more traditional side of things and produce beautiful and authentic Mexican dishes. Taco Farm salsa and chips are available at select local retailers and the St. Jacobs Farmers Market and at their own online shop, Fat Sparrow Marketplace. Open for takeout and limited dining, Taco Farm is located at 8 Herb Street West in Uptown Waterloo. You can also order for pickup by calling at 519-208-1300. Have Taco Farm delivered to your home through DoorDash or Uber Eats, or visit them online at tacofarm.ca. Amazing Mexican-inspired cuisine with many international touches. Tacos like these don't just grow on trees. They're farmed. Bonn Park is supported by Crania Schools. Stephen Hawking, the famous late physicist, once said computer programming is an essential skill to learn, whether you want to uncover the secrets of the universe or you want to pursue a career in the 21st century. Hawking would likely have approved of Crania Schools, where young people learn exceptional mathematics and cutting-edge computer programming, along with other courses that build both technical skills and critical thinking. For kids already studying math in school, Crania offers enrichment courses and encourages participation in competitions like the world-renowned University of Waterloo Math Contests, the Caribou Math Contest, and the American Mathematics Competition. And how cool is this? Crania students also learn to write code in the world's most popular programming languages, including Python and JavaScript. A must for any student wishing to explore careers in science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. Crania uses an evidence-based curriculum that builds on both a decade of research in global math programs and incorporates practical teaching experience. Crania is rooted in a family tradition of teaching and is committed to helping each learner reach their full potential. During the time he spent at Waterloo's Perimeter Institute for Theoretical Physics, Stephen Hawking was impressed by the scientific curiosity and smarts among young people in our region. Crania aims to keep that legacy alive. Check out Crania for yourself at the Boardwalk in Waterloo. Want to know more? Call 519-781-8810 or visit crania-schools.com.
Welcome to Bonn Park.
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 Welcome to Bonn Park. I'm Sara Geidlinger.
And I'm Marshall Ward.
And today we have Melissa Durrell. Melissa is the president of Durrell Communications, leading one of the top PR and communication teams in southwestern Ontario.
Originally from Saskatoon, she served 2 terms as the elected official representing Uptown Waterloo on City Council. She is the vice chair of the Uptown Waterloo Business Improvement Area, and she is a big supporter of the Zonta Film Festival. She is also one of Canada's top pitch coaches.
Melissa also talks to us about her former career as an award-winning broadcast journalist, leadership and solidarity, storytelling and community building, and being a fierce advocate for women's rights and inclusivity. She's also just super cool. Here she is, Melissa Durrell. Hey, Melissa Durrell, thank you so much for being here today.
I'm really excited to be here today. Thank you for having me.
How did you two meet?
Actually, we don't really know each other well at all, but we met at the same place I met our guest, Joe Thiessen, the naturopath.
Yes, Joe's one of my neighbors.
Oh, yeah, great. So we met at the Children's Library Program at the Uptown WPL, where you sort of sit and dance with your children. And I think
books.
maybe Roberta was the leader at that point.
Good memory.
Yeah. Oh, she was so charismatic and wonderful, and the kids just absolutely loved her. And sometimes almost like a Disney character. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean like she would speak to me as softly as she would speak to the children, and made me feel special.
Some people are just meant to be children's librarians.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
And that was a great program. I met so many people there, and it was my place to go. We didn't have like a Starbucks on every corner when our kids were babies.
That's right.
And it was kind of a place to go to, I don't know, feel a little bit human, and then also maybe grab some books for yourself, which was harder in that branch because of the 2 levels.
Yes, that's right.
With kids, yeah.
Yes, and the rollers. Yeah, I think back to that because, of course, when we connected that way, I was like, oh my goodness. And I was a reporter for CTV at the time. And it's interesting because you move into a community, and most of the time you're only there for a year, a couple of years. I think I'd worked in several cities before we came to Kitchener-Waterloo. And my husband really liked Waterloo, and I did too. There was something just magical about the Uptown Waterloo, the community. I just fell in love with it. And, but there wasn't a lot. I'm not a maternity kind of mom. Like I have to say that much. I was definitely searching for things to do and people to connect with during that time. And so that was a savior for me. And then it's interesting because then I joined the Waterloo board of directors for the library a couple of years later. So it was kind of nice to be able to pay it back.
Oh,
totally. In that way. Yeah.
Yeah. Because those are life-saving programs for people when you're at home with little ones. Like if I didn't have Marshall to talk to at Bonn Park when we were at home, stay at home, work at home parents, I probably would have lost my mind.
Full circle.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had this. I was a full-time stay-at-home dad for 8 years. And what I pictured before that was very different to what it actually was. I thought there'd be a whole community of people to chat with and hang out with at the park, and it really wasn't like that at all.
And the kids would just be playing silently in the background,
Right.
happy all the time.
Yeah.
That's interesting to me because my husband did half pats for both of mine, and I remember him commenting on there was very few men that were taking that time.
Yeah,
and
you still got to hang with the ladies. Like it's not as many dads to hang out with, even though there are some. It's few and far between.
Well,
it's still not the norm.
I never met one.
Right. Okay.
And I would wear it like a badge of honor. So if I heard someone did it for like 6 months, I'd be like, that's not a stand.
No,
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not allowed to wear it as a badge of honor, though. It's just part of what we're
exactly.
supposed to do.
It feels like you need a badge, though. Sometimes I can imagine.
I gave myself one.
I've
sash and a crown.
Thought a lot. I watch a lot of city or CP24 and breakfast television. Those shows. I always wonder was like for a reporter to like Kelly Linehan to come from out east and then arrive in Toronto, and suddenly you're this on-air personality, and within a short time, thousands of people know you. What's that like when you arrive somewhere and you're put on TV and you're in a community, and what's that like?
Yeah, Marshall, it's pretty interesting. I would say one of the cities that I had that the most was in Sudbury. They really only had one news station. CTV, Sudbury was MCTV at the time. And so pretty small. Everyone watched the news. And that was really the first time where I really felt like everywhere I went, there were people that, either looked. It's interesting because I think as a reporter, one of the news directors I worked with once said, like, you don't want to stand out because you want people to hear your story. You want to be telling the story. It's not about you. It's about the story. So you kind of want to look casual and, don't wear the red glasses. You want to sort of fade in a little bit. So I think a lot of people kind of recognize me, but they didn't know how. And I get a lot of, are you my banker? Or
you also look a little bit like Jennifer Aniston.
Oh my God, please.
Yeah, no, you do. In a good way.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Wow. But yeah, so that was really interesting. I think I stopped noticing it after a while. And I think you also, because you're in a newsroom, everyone else is, many of the people are in the same position as you, where you're just kind of dropping into a community. You're working there for a short period of time and then you're moving on, at least in Saskatoon, one of the stations I worked at, and in Sudbury as well. So I think for a lot of us, we all hang out with the people in the newsroom, which is pretty interesting too, because, I remember in Sudbury, I actually said, I've started to run a marathon because we would finish the 6:00 news. We'd be done by 7:15. We'd all end up at the restaurant, have a couple of beers, start the whole day over again. And
Sounds fun though.
It was fun, but I thought, I'm going to gain a lot of weight and be really unhealthy soon. So, but it was fun. I have to say, it was a great career to have in my 20s and 30s. It's about midway through it.
It's such an odd thing to be in the supermarket. It's like, oh, there's Nancy Richards, or there's Leah Rosecat, and there they are in the flesh, and you look at them, and then you politely look away.
Yeah.
And then you have to look again.
Yeah.
And sometimes you need to figure out where they're, them from.
Yeah,
they're part of your lives, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Where are you from originally?
So I grew up in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. And came out here to go to university. But my parents divorced when I was 3. So my dad was in Ottawa and my mom was in Saskatoon. So I grew up between 2 really different cities. Yeah. And finally, I've moved out east now. And I say out east as a prairie girl.
What? I thought you lived here.
No, I did. It's east for the prairies. Yeah. And I met my husband while I was in Toronto finishing my journalism degree. And he's a Barrie boy. And so then we just kind of moved around to a couple of different TV stations, and he's a teacher, so that worked out nicely.
He's a high school teacher, right? So you're sort of the one driving these moves.
Yeah,
right.
But it's great because, as a teacher, there's always a position.
Work. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But we did this was it. He kind of put his heels in and said, okay,
we live here.
One more move or this is it. I love this place. And we fell in love with Uptown. When we first moved here, somebody in the newsroom said, you got to live as close to Vincenzo's as possible. And we have moved every house we've lived in or rented
within a radius
is 2 to 3 blocks from Vincenzo's. So I'll tell you a lot about who I am.
So I made a documentary in Saskatoon.
Come on,
yeah.
Where?
So I'm the biggest Northern Pikes fan.
No way.
I say that every time he says it.
So I went and found Jay Semko from the Northern Pikes out there. But one of my most vivid memories is a couple things. One is there's a hotel that's on all the haunted, in all the haunted magazines for haunted hotels. I forget what it's called, but it's really big. And
the Besborough, are you
yeah,
talking
that's
about?
what it is. Yeah.
Oh, it's gorgeous. That's like a castle.
Yeah, so many spooky, and I stayed there, and so many spooky ghost stories in there. And
you love a good ghost story.
For sure.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is I remember getting up and walking around 6 a.m. and downtown Saskatoon. And I remember when I came back, I saw Jay Semko over the Pikes, and I said, why are there so many taxidermied animals in all the windows? What? They're in all these different storefronts, all these weird little
trying to pass the time
raccoons and stuff. And he goes, yeah, it's kind of like the Twilight Zone, isn't it? Anyways, I remember I have this vivid memory of just store after store having taxidermied wildlife. Yeah. So anyways.
I lived there almost my whole young life, and I don't remember that.
You could have different sensitivities because Marshall is a very passionate vegetarian and believes in animal rights, and maybe you saw it and Melissa didn't see it, right?
Yeah.
You'd get along with my daughter, big time. But Saskatoon is a very interesting town. The Northern Pikes went to my high school, so I just want to throw that out there. Yeah,
all this fame just flying around.
They are their albums are my youth. You could put on any song, any Northern Pike song, and I could tell you what party I was at, what street I was walking down. Definitely they were a huge part.
There's a song called Jackie T from Big Blue Sky, and it's about
Big Blue Sky,
a boy seeing a girl in a drugstore. And I remember I got to have Jay Semko point out to me, there's a drugstore that I saw Jackie T, in the name tag.
Yeah, I love it.
But also so much Big Blue Sky out there, just like the Pikes album.
So
but
gorgeous.
What an amazing place to have your early years in a spot like that.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, I love it out there. We had a cottage in northern Saskatchewan in Prince Albert National Park, Waskesiu. And so I was still heading out there almost every summer for a couple of weeks, just unplugged 2 to 3 weeks every year. And I wanted my kids to learn about Saskatchewan. When I moved to Ontario, I remember my brother saying to me, oh, you've got an Ontario accent. And I thought that was such a funny thing. Later he said to me, it's just you talk a lot faster. It's I think there's that. But I still think there's a lot of prairie girl in me. I still say hi to everybody on the street all the time. Maybe it's,
I'm from here. I do it all the time.
I don't know. Because that's what you do in Saskatchewan. You know, how's it going? Hello. It's a really friendly place. And I think you appreciate the environment a lot more in a lot different way. Like every time we come into Saskatoon and we get out of the airport and you just smell the air, it smells different there. The wildlife up in Waskesiu is incredible. Elk walking through your yards, and it's amazing. And I just really wanted my kids to be able to know what that is, because I don't think it's hard to get that if you go and visit, because you'll stay in the Besbro at the haunted house. You go for like a river ride on the Saskatchewan River, and one thing they are doing that's really interesting is I remember growing up and there was Indigenous people moving into the city. They were shutting down the residential schools, and I remember the government of Saskatchewan was buying up rows of houses so people could move into the city, and so it was a very different culture to grow up in around Indigenous people. However, I remember going to farmers' fields, and we would actually North Battleford, and we would go and pick arrowheads out of once they tilled the fields at the end of the harvest, and we'd find hammerheads, like actual large rocks and it was amazing. And we grew up learning about that kind of culture. And when I came to Ontario, actually it was for CTV in Kitchener, I covered the Caledonia takeover, whatever, not necessarily takeover, taking their land back, if you will. And went and covered that. And it was such a different feeling to the way that people communicate with Indigenous people. And because in Saskatchewan, by 2050, half the population will be Indigenous. It's part of who we are. Now, I would say we do a really crappy job as the colonizers of showcasing who we are as people, and we could be way better at it.
Totally
a million times better. But at least I felt I was exposed to it in a different way. And I think that's one of the things I wanted to bring back to my kids. Like, you're in Prince Albert, and you're a minority in the grocery store when you're shopping, because, and that's,
that's just a reality of how you grew up, right?
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. And their culture is so beautiful, and they're sharing it so lovingly now. That's the one big thing. Last time we went back out there, we really wanted to learn as much as we could. I think because we're all trying to get a little bit more woke about what's happening in this country, and I think education is the way to do it. So the kids and I did a lot of going to museums and speaking with people, and going to if they had a ceremony, we'd try to be a part of the ceremony, bring tribute, and I think that gives me hope, because it's happening there in a place where it needs to. There's so much to I think be sorry for and to apologize for in Saskatchewan. I just hope it starts to continue to spread east.
I actually have an arrowhead from my grandparents' place in the Kawarthas. And my uncle, I think, gave it to me, and every time I see it, it feels weird. It feels like it's not mine.
Yeah, it's really
and then
unique
I should put it
too.
back. Very unique.
And that they like the intricacies as they, and then you think this is. Like, they didn't have a chance against guns.
No,
like, it is so. So horrific. It's such a. Well, I took this conversation right down, did I?
It's okay. That's okay. It's true. It's what's happening right now. We need to recognize it.
Yeah, we do. And
that's what's been happening for hundreds of years.
I also am amazed how it often takes musicians to actually bring these things to light through. I remember Jim Cuddy and Greg Keeler recording something a long, long time ago for this one record, not a Blue Rodeo record, but just for some of us, it's the first time we hear about these injustices in our history.
That's why I'm going to probably misspeak, but the mandate as part of reconciliation, to teach the children in school, and it's jarring for kids at first, right? Because they don't know. They haven't been exposed to it their whole lives. They don't understand what happened, and they don't understand that this was previous, and it's not like we've been letting it go on. Like, some of us didn't know what was happening and didn't know the history, right?
Yeah.
So as part of that education I think it starts in 3rd grade. Am I wrong?
I think so, yeah.
3rd grade?
Yeah.
I could be wrong. Somebody...
I know our kids are learning about it. My daughters,
Yeah.
Both my daughter and my son are bringing stuff home that they're learning. So they are doing it.
And they're 7, did you know that this happened? I'm like, yeah, I do. Well, even my daughter's like, is my school going to get renamed? It's Sir John A. Macdonald High School, right? Is my school getting renamed? And I'm like, it should be. Yeah. Soon. I thought it would have been renamed before you even started there.
Is there for Canadians who move from provinces, through provinces like that, is there somewhat of a cultural duality that happens where you can arrive here in Ontario and you can eventually feel at home, but never maybe quite like home?
Yeah.
And like code switching,
I imagine people can move from the West Coast to the East Coast and feel like an outsider, or vice versa, and always feel that way.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's why I held on to my cottage in Saskatchewan so long, because it does. There's a feeling of home. It's the smell, it's the feel, it's the water. Last summer, when my mother sold the cottage. So I thought, I'm pretty sure this is going to be the last time. And I remember just going down to the water and recording it, coming in on the shore. And
just to have that.
Yeah. And so, I think I'm proud of my prairie roots. Like, I think they helped shape who I became and who I am and who I'm going to be as I continue to evolve and hopefully be better. But I do think, Ontario is a shocker. Like, anyone who moves from any province into Ontario is a shocker. Absolutely.
Yeah,
So-
I would say it's fast paced and a lot is expected all the time.
And what year did you
Yeah.
arrive in Waterloo region?
I moved here in 2004.
Okay.
So you're a newbie.
I am. I am. And what does my husband say? There's sort of like the people who moved, the tranches. So the people who grew up here, the people who came here for university and stayed. I'm that next level of the, like, I came for a job and stayed.
Stayed.
Yeah.
What was
a
the
great place.
landscape then? Like, what do you remember in the first year thinking as you navigated your way around? And
Oh my gosh. So when I came for my interview at CTV in Kitchener, James McDonald, who was a reporter at the time, and he and I were friends. We'd we'd been at a few stations together. So he said, park at, which is now the Uptown Public Square. So park your car there because it was a parking lot
Of course,
at the
that
time.
was a parking lot. Yeah.
And he says, there's no restaurants in the downtown area. So we'll go up and I'll pay. So I parked my car, got into his car, and we went up to the University District area and had lunch up there.
And look how much has changed.
So much has changed. It was interesting because I have to say, Marshall, I came out of Sudbury with Inco, Falconbridge, all the mining companies were really struggling. It was so poor. Their downtown was struggling. So to come to Waterloo and a town that was hopping, this was the height of BlackBerry. Like there was so much money getting put in the right places and put in all places. It was unbelievable. And so it was really exciting to come from a place where there was a lot of federal money coming in to grant people. We did a lot of economic development stories and how do you turn Sudbury around? And it was coming around. I mean, years before that, they thought it looked like Mars, right, because of the acid rain. But I mean, this city it had it all. I mean, we instantly fell in love with just the vibe here. And I think, I was probably early 30s. The station there was quite, I think most of the people were like Leslie Gordon and Janine Grespan and Brent. It was a fun station where Art Ballmonk took me under his wing and
Dave McDonald,
Dave McDonald, our weather guy. It was a fun station to work at. They had one of the best news directors in this country. I really wanted to work for him. That was one of the reasons why I came here. And so I loved it. And I got to do some great stories. I mean, one of my first stories was the Bonn Park scandal. And then moved into, of course, amalgamation and then LRT. We were talking about LRT that long ago. Buses, all those kind of things. So it was neat coming to this city. I think because you come in and I was a political reporter. I covered City Hall. I'm one of the rare breed that I love politics. I love municipal politics. I love the heartbeats of the city. So, everyone was like, absolutely, you can take over.
Please take this. Yeah. With a bow on it and a $20 bill taped to it. Yeah.
You want to sit in a city council meeting?
Yeah.
Sure. So it was really fun. And so I think, from the very start, I saw and I understood the vision of what this community could be and what it was. And I mean, obviously, it's a huge adrenaline hit to the heart with a BlackBerry, where people are flying in from all over the world to be a part of this company, and it's changing the world. I mean, it was a company that changed the world.
I know.
So it was amazing to be one of the people who got to tell that story from a local perspective.
I guess you would have seen the think tanks arrive too, the Institute for Quantum Computing and the Perimeter Institute. And
Yeah.
that is an amazing time that you arrived.
I mean, how could you not fall in love with this city? Yeah.
So you mentioned storytelling, and I think that's a big part of everything that I've seen that you have done. So being a news journalist, being involved in all of the causes that you're involved in, like fully involved.
Yeah.
So the global, with the Women's March Global.
Yeah, Women's March is amazing.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, so much stuff. You are a pitch coach for your business,
tech companies.
For your what else are you doing? You're talking about Canadian Shield. Tell us all the stuff that you're involved in, because it's a long list and it makes me feel like I haven't been up to much.
No.
And I mean that with love, with 100% love.
Well, and you must know that there's like, I have an entire team of incredible women that work with me. And same thing on Women's March. Our local march is run by awesome women, and I just help as much as I can. Like, you know, it's a really good point around how you can get things done in a city. And that's one of the things that I've got a little bit of a knack for, is helping people get things done. And so, you know, use your power for purpose, right? So, you know, let's march to Laurier. You know, Laurier won't call us back. Let's call Laurier. Let's get them on the phone and make sure that we can march there. You know,
don't let this idea die and drop.
Right.
Get in there and make it happen.
Yeah, yeah. So, so Women's March has been a load of fun. The film festival, Zonta Film Festival, which is one of my passions. I think Marshall, I think you wrote about it.
He did, yeah.
Once, yeah. So that started, we're coming on our 10-year anniversary this year in November. And it started with, my aunt is a filmmaker. She's an incredible filmmaker, and she made a film called The Cutting Tradition, which is about female genitalia mutilation. And Meryl Streep was she voiced it, and it was an incredible film. So I had her come to Waterloo to speak about her film at an International Women's Day event. And we showed her film a couple times at the Princess just to raise some extra funds for her organization, which is Safe Hands, so that every child's delivered into safe hands. And all these people came to watch the film, and my aunt and I snuck into the Princess Cafe for a glass of wine in between one of the films, and it was all these women sitting over tables talking about female genitalia mutilation. And I thought, bang, this is what we need to do. We need to
open up these conversations.
Absolutely.
Let people tell their stories.
Yeah.
Or hear other stories.
Yeah, and inspire. Because, you know, it's like what you were saying with Indigenous rights. I think if we don't know about it, then you can't even take your power to help other people, or to, you know, and I don't want to sound like a savior, but to use what you can to help open doors, or whatever it is, even if it's just money or time or whatever it is.
I don't even think that you should say that part where, well, I mean, I'm going to tell you what to do. I don't think you should say that you don't want to sound like a savior. We all do that. We all excuse, like, hey, I don't want to talk about this thing that's really important for us to talk about. And even in the last few years, with the work that you're doing, with the work that you see a lot of social media turning into more realistic images of what women's beauty is, and what an acceptable body might be, all that kind of stuff. If no one opens up that conversation and starts that storytelling, everybody doesn't think they're normal. Everyone thinks there's something wrong. Everyone thinks, well, am I even supposed to have these thoughts, right? Specifically, I'm talking about women here. And instead of comparing and out-buying and out-consuming and out-primping and all of that stuff that does not matter and is a total effing waste of time. Instead, if we spend that energy that we're spending doing all of that other stuff on opening up these stories and talking to each other about it, that's the key right there. That's going to be what changes the future.
I think so.
So you are a savior.
Oh, no, not at all. But I do. I mean, I'll tell you, there's a fabulous documentary that we showed last year called We Will Stand Up by one of my favorite directors. Her name's Tasha Hubbard. Her first film was Family Reunion, and it was all her siblings were separated through the residential school program in Saskatoon.
Heartbreaking.
They all met 25 years later at a cottage cabin. We call them cabins in Saskatchewan. Look, see, there's my Ontarioism coming out. And it's a beautiful film. And so 2 years later, she told We Will Stand Up, and it was the Kultumbushi story. And it's an incredible film. And I think that's why I'm so drawn to stories, because I think you can talk to people and you can hear statistics, but it's the story and the emotion that hits you. Like, I'll never forget Kultumbushi's sister speaking at the United Nations about her brother and the injustices about what happened to him. Like, I'll never forget that. And I think that's what has to drive you to make change happen, right? So if you so I think those are the stories that actually drive change. So that's why I love them. And so this year we're still trying to figure out what we're going to do with the film festival.
Of course, yeah.
But I'm hopeful that we'll still move forward with it. And we've been watching some incredible films. So hopefully we'll be able to bring them to Waterloo region again
and share them.
I think some of the most powerful stories told in those festivals are one where it's like directors and producers give a voice to the voiceless. Yes. So when I think about female genital mutilation, I remember when I first heard about that, I imagine a lot of people thought things like, oh, that goes on in countries over in Africa. And they're already so barbaric, and that's just kind of their way. And
It's somebody else's
we
problem.
can't understand it. And then they bring up, you know that in Papua New Guinea, there's tribes that throw women into the fire, so they just, it almost becomes this fictional thing, far and away.
Distant.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think one of the areas that we've been focusing on a lot is Saudi Arabia because of the male guardianship laws. And I think, to your point, it's one of those things where you like, really? Women aren't considered equal, and I think we take that for granted.
There's a whole movement right now to free Britney, but nobody's talking about these women and the male guardianship.
That
right?
makes me so sad that you said that, because that is what
it's true.
I know. I saw that hashtag. I didn't even look into it. What is that about?
It's been going on for a long time, but there's guardianship over her personal finances and management. And it's been going on for years. She has zero control over.
So is she mentally? Does she?
I don't know. I don't know her, but the media would say so. But I don't. I haven't seen the court records or anything.
Yeah.
I always say, I've said this a few times on here, that anybody that searches for and obtains that level of fame, it's got to be something that you can turn off to get through it, like the Biebs and Britney.
Yeah.
But sorry, I did, of course, talk over you. But you were talking about Saudi Arabia.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, I think I'm done. We're good there. I think that's something I'd like to see change in this lifetime. I mean, China, I'm sorry, I can get pretty, I think, I hope that in my lifetime, I say this to my kids all the time, is that we'll see a democratic China. That's, one of the things I think will really change this world for the better. But
things are changing pretty fast.
Yeah.
There's a commercial on TV right now, and it's pretty unsettling. It's a woman, and she's talking on like a Zoom or Skype with a friend, and they're talking about a recipe, sharing a recipe, and then the whole tone of and there's a man walking around the background. I was telling Sara about it.
Oh, yeah, you were.
The whole tone of the commercial changes, and the woman raises her one hand, and you can't see me do it on the podcast, but she basically tucks her thumb and then covers it as though something's being like trapped, I would say. And the commercial reveals to you, I think in text, basically, if you're in a situation right now during the pandemic in your home and you need somebody to look in on you and help,
you're in danger.
This is how you communicate. And the thing that makes me so incredibly sad about it is, what kind of situation are you in that you have to use a hand signal?
There's a lot of them.
Over remotely to get your communication across, that you can't just walk out the door and find someone to help you.
Imagine the courage that it will take somebody to raise their hand and make that sign.
Yeah, the commercial just gives me the chills.
And when you told me about that, that's when I was telling you about, you can go into a restaurant or bar and ask if Angela is working. Is that the right name? I think still so, that? Yeah. I mean, maybe they've changed it at this point. I will look it up and put it in the show notes. But that is like, please help or show me a back door. I need out of here right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we did a series, the Women's Crisis Center, She's My Neighbor. And a big part of that was trying to give voices to people who, I don't think, we don't want to normalize it, but we want to spotlight to say that, I think a lot of times people are afraid to come forward because their world comes crashing down, right? And those oppressors who are doing it for power can often be powerful people in the community as well.
Yeah, and there's a lot of a psychological dance too. Like there could be financial abuse. There 100%. Could be children that you can't take with you. There's so much it could be woven into there that, thank goodness, we don't understand firsthand ourselves.
Or the quote that's on Melissa's poster, is that what it is? Kind of. I'm going to paraphrase it. Basically says, this was an incredibly wealthy family.
No, I saw that.
Yeah, yes. And sorry, I'm trying to paraphrase. It has to do with
she never had any bruises.
Right.
She never had any bruises. She never showed any physical abuse, but she was she was such a victim, and it showed in so many different ways. I remember. She ended up in a mental institute for a while, and we were just like, what is going on with you? And sure enough, finally the courage happens, and it doesn't happen fast. And I think it's all you can do. It's so hard as a friend. And I think that's why I love this neighbor program so much.
Oh, I love it. What's your ringtone? Love it. We should have had a dance party. Mine's Beastie Boys, So What You Want.
So it's so funny that you're talking about the Northern Pikes, because I am a huge electronic music girl.
Yeah.
And so my kids, we listen to a Tribe Called Red.
Oh,
and
great.
like we listen to
Yeah.
really like some great DJ music in our house, but I try to bring in some, because it's cool Indigenous music.
Yeah.
One of my favorite candidates, we always go to Ottawa for Canada Day, and I think it was like 2 or 3 years ago, and there was a beautiful ceremony that happened around the fire, and then with our Indigenous elders, and of course the Prime Minister was there, and all the people that need to be there to shake hands and do that thing, and then all of a sudden Tribe Called Red dropped the beat on the stage, and the whole place just started to bounce.
So fun.
It was so great. I was
That's
like
great.
Shazamming this song. I'm like, I need this song. It's so good.
I know that feeling, that beautiful concert feeling where you think things are going to go one way and you're like, oh my God, they're going this way.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know? Sorry, but I had to yell it.
Yeah.
So exciting.
I don't know if you guys have been to many shows, kind of like Lollapaloozas and those kind of festivals, but I always came away from them kind of like, I was looking forward to seeing this band, this band, this band, this
There's a lot you got
band.
to get through. Yeah.
So like in 1992, I saw Lollapalooza. I remember I wanted to see Pearl Jam
I
and
think I was there.
Red Hot Chili Peppers.
I was
Oh,
there.
Chili Peppers are so
but
good.
but I had never seen Ministry. I didn't know anything about
Oh, it was
Ministry.
good.
And it blew me away.
Yeah.
And anyways, I've been to a few of those big shows where I come away thinking, oh my gosh, Midnight Oil is such an incredible band, you know? And I just weren't on my radar for some reason beforehand.
It's so funny you bring up Midnight Oil. I was actually doing a tutorial with my kids about amazing activist music, and I played Beds Are Burning. And I don't know, did you know he's now an MP in the Australian government?
fantastic.
And he's all about
Peter
Indigenous
Garrett,
rights. Yes, he's such a cool guy. So I played that song and a couple of Sarah Harmer songs.
Yes,
Thank you.
she's
Yeah.
always defending our escarpment.
Yes.
Yes.
So what's so interesting about Midnight Oil is how, you know, in 1988, I would have heard these songs, Beds Are Burning, and then later My Country. And I would have taken them in based on my limited life experience at that time and my own
As you do when you're young.
emotional capacity. And when I hear them now, only now do I understand what those songs are about. But it takes your own life experience to catch up to you, much like old Billy Joel songs. And you have to live your life before you go, oh, that's what he's singing about.
And then if one day you're just like, now I understand.
But anyways,
Uptown Girl.
it's like Midnight Oil. I don't know if you can fully appreciate when you're 20. Maybe 20-year-olds today can, but it took me decades to go, oh, I get it.
Yeah, no, I remember listening to that song and being like, what is happening in your country?
Yeah, I thought Australia was so peaceful.
Yeah. They just celebrated the anniversary of For Dead in Ohio.
Oh, yeah.
So it's Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young.
Yeah.
And I heard a couple clips of the making of that song and how it happened. And that's what got me on my activist music kick. So I was like,
Nice.
kids, you got to know this.
Yeah, it's called Ohio, right? That song,
Yeah, it is.
And it like that's a song that'll give you chills now. Yeah.
It's so relevant
So
right
great.
now still. And that is it's a deadly, horrifying story for sure.
Well, and it was almost at the same time where Trump decided to clear out all the protesters just outside of the White House for a Bible photo op. Yeah.
and post that. I mean, way to go, TikTok and
K-pop.
who else? Thank you. I know this. Way to go, TikTok and K-pop users and fans, because man, did they ever mess up a few things for him? I wasn't sure if there was a place in my life for K-pop, and now I know there is.
Oh yeah, embrace your K-pop.
Yeah. I have a friend that loves it. And I'm like, really? Really?
I'm amazed when I think about phones, how when the phones first arrived, I was completely against it. Everybody had to listen to me say, these are going to ruin everything. They're the most invasive
Marshall still
thing.
doesn't
I
have
still
one.
don't have
He's
a
not
phone.
online.
No, and I was going to say, this is the most invasive thing ever. This
It
is going
is.
to ruin everything. Anyways, those phones are an incredible tool.
They are.
Now, and play just this massive role in change
Yeah.
and capturing things. And
And look at the good that those kids did, right? Were we talking about this story? Are you familiar with this story? They flooded, like Trump was to have a rally
In Tulsa, Oklahoma.
in Tulsa,
they sold a
Oklahoma.
million tickets, and I
And
think 20,000 or less, 17,000
less.
people showed up.
yeah.
Yeah, they ruined it for him. They reserved tickets, bought tickets, and mocked him online. And this was
a
TikTok
beautiful
users and
thing.
K-pop fans. And K-pop fans also flooded the White Lives Matter, All Lives Matter hashtags
Yes,
online.
they did.
So that when people would go to see, like, oh, let's go look at some powerful White Lives Matter stuff, it would be like, here's my skincare routine before I go on stage, or like just like hours and hours of 30-second clips of singing, which was, I thought it was beautiful. It was a beautiful way to show your power through being kind through your phone. Am I saying that right?
Yeah. I have been a believer from the start, and I think it's because I was a reporter. And I'll never forget. It wouldn't have been Stephen Harper. Maybe it was Stephen Harper. When's he prime minister? But he was doing an event, and we all had just got the brand new Blackberries, and it was like global. All the reporters were there, and we were all trying to figure out how to use them because we could now write our scripts on our phones, right? Which was amazing. And kind of, you're still doing. That was still back when you do like 888. And that, whatever that letters, I guess that's R. Anyway, so I fell in love with it, and I had this. Like, this is for me. I'm 3 weeks in to my life without a BlackBerry, and here I am in my mid-40s.
Yeah.
My husband's a diehard. He is BlackBerry through and through. He will not change.
Yeah,
like. If there comes a point where they don't make them anymore, he might just carry around Blackberries.
So I actually I know the people at my BlackBerry store know me very well because they've actually said to me, "You cannot put any more money into this phone.
like let it die."
I cracked the screen so many times. I lost plugs in it. They're like,
"He's the same.
It's still good. It's still good thing." That's what happened.
It's sad. I do feel like a sadness because there was such a pride in living in the city that invented the smartphone.
You should.
Really,
it's incredible.
Yeah, but then we let it die.
Yeah. Well, competition takes over. Change happens. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the greatest things about living in this community. And, going back to storytelling, as a communications consultant for some of the coolest tech companies in the world that are all here, I feel pretty lucky. Let's talk about a 26-year-old guy with 5 employees at an ed tech company that is now running a multi-million dollar PPE manufacturing company in 3 months. I think they were at 102 days not too long ago. I mean, it is incredible what the Canadian Shield and Inksmith has turned into, and they continue to evolve, and they're ahead of the curve, and they're smart, and they're agile. And I mean, that is it's dreamy to live in a community where you can see that happen.
And with these type of companies, the power of youth and open-mindedness, I think the old business adage of, well, that's the way we've always done it, does not exist.
Not in this world. People. Yeah, not in this tech world. And not in a pandemic. I mean, it's been really interesting watching, I always call them our CEOs, because we work with a lot of different CEOs. The ones that embrace change, weren't afraid to fail, tried different things. Those are the ones that were succeeding in this time. And, and then there's the ones who just turtled, right? And, or, for a variety of reasons. And some of them, if you're in the restaurant business, there's just nothing that you can do.
We were talking to Jessie Votary last week, who is the maker behind Ramshackle Industries in Stratford and owns a bunch of restaurants. And she was like, yeah, a lot of people are using this pandemic to shut up doors anyway. It was going to happen regardless. But you have to shift and you have to adapt. And we're doing the best that we can. And here's our business plan that we can get through it. But man, tough stuff.
But the patios are amazing right now. And one of the things I really like to see happen in this community is to do 4-season patios.
Oh yeah.
I know with the bylaws say you've got to move the patios off because of the snow, but wouldn't it be cool to just keep the patios open, put some heaters out there, throw a couple blankets around?
Yeah. I would go.
I think it's totally
bring my own
go.
blanket.
They do it I always like to look at Copenhagen, some of the cool little cities that are doing amazing things, and their temperatures aren't that dissimilar to what we have. So, and they're doing it, and it's an amazing culture. And we are people who need to be out. I mean, the Uptowners, we need to be out. We want to be seeing each other on the street. That's part of who we are, and that's urban living. That's why we live in urban centers.
It is, and that's part of my personal family. When we have had enough of winter and we've been indoors, we're like, let's go to Famoso, let's go to Beer Town, let's go to Ethel's. Let's get up there and have something to eat and get out of the house, even in the winter.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, absolutely.
How lovely would that be to have a patio to go to?
Melissa, with all your background, and you're a Waterloo City Councillor, when you walk, let's say, from one end of Uptown Waterloo to the other, what do you see, and does it make sense to you what's down there, what's in Uptown Waterloo, in the way that sometimes a giant chain restaurant moves in? I think, this doesn't look like it fits at all. And it's gone after a few months, and then another one moves in. And anyways,
Or the enigma that is across from the Hoother, just constantly changing. I don't even know what it's called right now.
Uptown Waterloo is such an interesting place that I don't understand it really, and why some businesses do well and some don't. Do you feel like you have any better insight than the rest of us as to how it all works?
Well, I think Uptown has a really unique culture to it. And I think that if you can look at a store like Wordsworth and break down why they're successful, I think it's because of their incredible service, that the owners. I think that that's really important to Uptowners and, or to the people who shop there. And that's why I think the chains don't do as well in Uptown, because we, as a community, really like to know each other. And the person who ran Whole Lotta Gelato lived down the street from me, Chris. And
Love that place.
Right?
Love the family. They were so, I'm sure they're still sweet.
Yeah. He's selling big vats of it. He's doing great. But I think that, to me, that's what it is. It's part of that. I always like to say Waterloo, Uptown is like it's a small town in a big city. Like we do know each other. And I love that. And I hope that never changes. So, as I walk uptown, I think I do love to see progress. And I think things have changed and evolved just in the economy in general. So having this big, large space doesn't make sense anymore for retail. Smaller square footage for stores makes more sense. So as we develop, we want to see more smaller space stores. I do 100% believe in going up and not out. And so I do like I think some of the towers look really exceptional. And I think they also afford amazing views of our community too, which, looking out onto Waterloo Park, we've saved that over 52 acres, is that right, of greenery, and continue to try and to polish it and make it that jewel of Waterloo better. Look, see, there's my old City of Waterloo messaging coming up. So I love the way it's going. I think I do have a bit of blinders on when I look at the city, in the sense that I see the old post office with the beautiful tower. It has a new building that's going in. So when I look at it, I see that development coming forward with the cool patio that'll be on the top. And the old post office at the corner of King and Bridgeport will evolve into an incredible STEAM science and tech space with condos on top. And I see that. And so then I see what's that going to spawn. And I look at those parking lots and I think, well, they won't be there for much longer. What could be there? I think I dream a little bit more about what it's going to look like, and I'm excited because I feel like once you start that momentum, you can't stop it, right? So I hope, I think the urban design guidelines in Uptown will protect our communities so that we can still have those beautiful old buildings with new buildings in between. I love it. Like, I think it's a lot of little towns or towns of our size, you can drop in, they all look the same because they have the same, store, the malls buy the same stores. And it's almost like it
looks like home.
Yeah. Whereas I think Uptown is really unique, and I hope we continue to evolve that way. I mean, and I have faith that we will, because the 4 All ice cream is doing exceptionally well.
They should. It's delicious.
Right? And it's right on Willis Way. And
and did part of Willis just close for pedestrian traffic? Am I right about that?
Yeah, for all summer long. So it'll be a great little retail space. So please, to your listeners, come on out to Uptown and check out all the amazing vendors that are putting their wares out on the street. So yeah, it's very cool.
So getting back to being in the news world and then making that shift to running your own company and the steps in between, what did that look like for you?
Well, I think for me, I was really, really lucky in the sense that when I left CTV, I was already a I'd been nominated or elected to become a city councilor. And so, and I really wanted to roll up my sleeves and learn, because I'd been on the other side. I'd read the staff reports. I'd been going through the budgets for several years. But there's a huge amount of weight on your shoulders to now be the one who actually has to vote for that stuff and put your hand up. And so for me, and I think that learning curve is so huge. And anytime I'm talking to people who are thinking about running for government, I'm like, you really need to put the work in at the front. You really have to. It's like snowboarding. There's just you're going to break a wrist. So I had that, and that kept me really busy. And then it was just a really interesting a couple conversations from a few politicians that I had interviewed in the past that were interested in me helping them with their communication styles. And so that started to evolve into some media training. And then, one of our most successful organizations here in our community, Communitech, was launching a new program called REV, Hyperdrive at the time.
You get to hear it again?
Oh no, gosh, I'm so sorry. So, and so because they needed some pitch coaches, and we had these tech CEOs, mathematicians, engineers, who had incredible ideas, but really struggled to communicate what they were doing, or they got way too deep, too detailed, too this, too that. And so
your investor does not need to know how it's going to work exactly.
Yeah. And so, after 10 years, 15 years of training where I was zoomed into a story and I had to learn as much about it as I possibly could and go live at 6:00, I could come into a tech CEO and tell me, okay, everything about your company. And we could start to come out of it with a really interesting story that they could tell into investors about why there's a problem that they're solving. What is the problem that they're solving? And so all of a sudden I was like, wow, this is so great that my journalism career isn't completely for nothing after all that time put into it. So we started working with them, and I worked out of Communitech for a while, and I'm now at the Accelerator Center and Innovation Guelph pitch coaching CEOs, which is like such a fun little side job I get to do on the side. And then so that was how it evolved. So it just kind of gathered steam. I started out as a solopreneur. Hired, we do live in the University of Waterloo and Laurier, amazing, smart, intelligent people coming out of there constantly. So the talent pool has been awesome. So, as I've been lucky enough to hire some great people, the company's got to grow with it. And, staying in my lane, which is understanding media and communications. And, there's a lot of marketing companies in this community, and they do an amazing job, and I'd love to work with them. But, really we're about communication, telling your story. How do you do that through the media? Because I still really believe that, if you don't have a story to tell, then you don't have a company. Like, you really have to get that down before people will want to buy your product or be at least loyal to whatever you're doing.
I'm drawing a parallel here, and I mean this with great admiration and love and appreciation for your story. I'm thinking of Peggy Olson from Mad Men. Did you watch Mad Men? Yeah.
Yes. I went through a Mad Men phase where I was like drinking at lunch, and I'm like, no, this doesn't work for me.
God. I've never wanted a cigarette so bad in my life. All that smoking. I don't even know how they could stand it on set. But the passion that Peggy Olson had in that job, and the Don Draper just dripping with it. It's about the story. It's about the story. And when Peggy stole that line that was, if you don't like what's being said, change the conversation. But I always admired Peggy's role because it was not like a life-changing, earth-shattering, like, oh, this is how a woman won the war sort of thing. It was just like she was going to do it no matter what.
She's a worker bee.
Yeah, it was going to happen no matter who she was born as.
Yeah, women in that age, I think that's like, I know so many women through an organization I'm with, the Zonta. There's a lot of older women, and they put their heads down and they made gains where they could, and like love them for it, because we're all lucky because they did that. And we have to continue to do that
and continue to tell these stories. Repeating myself, but it's just true.
I want to ask you about becoming a city councillor.
Oh, did you want to talk? Because
okay. It's been lots of room for me. And so self-esteem must work like this. You work yourself to the point where you can be on television, CTV, right? Which must give you a huge self-esteem boost and confidence. And then to go to city council must be like I'll use my example. I'm the chair on the board of the KW Bilingual School. And I was saying to Sara, I can't believe I've been put in this position, like that people trust me to look after this school with
for a number of years.
With a whole team of people. Yeah. But I mean, city council is a whole nother level. Do you remember just thinking when it arrived, you got there, you thought, I'm ready for this? And
or were you like Alexander Hamilton and you're like, no, give me those papers. I got this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I'd be full of doubt about myself and concerns. What if I don't understand?
Am I in the wrong room?
Yeah. What if I don't understand this stuff? Is that not how it works?
Oh, 100%. I think, I do think my dad was the mayor of Ottawa. So when I grew up, I did have that role model in my life where I was watching someone do amazing things for their community in that role. So, I think for me, it was a bit more attainable because I saw someone I'm very close to, my mentor, be doing that, my dad. And I remember saying to him when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do at university, and I said, I really want to do something that's going to, I want to make an impact. And he said, don't go into politics, because I was kind of leaning towards that way. And I think at that point, it was Chrétien and Martin, and there was so much going on in the world. It was an exciting time to be a woman. Things were changing. And And he said, no, you'll never get anything done as a politician. Go into journalism. And I've always loved to tell stories. I was always the one, reporting the news live from like everywhere.
Yeah.
And so for me, that was that transition to say, okay. And then I think after about 15 years in journalism, where, I always quote my one news director who's like, you flip a lot of burgers to get that filet mignon. And I was not getting any filet mignon stories. Like it was tough. And I had 2 young kids at the time and I was exhausted.
Tough enough.
Well, I feel like you're on a treadmill, right?
Oh, I mean, there was days where I would show up at work and my husband and I, he was a teacher, so he would work from 7 till 3 and then I'd work the 3 to midnight shift at CTV. And we did that for, almost 2 years off and on because I did get pregnant a second time in there and then went back to that shift. It was hard work. And I think I just got exhausted to the point where I knew I couldn't do it anymore. And I was covering City Hall and I was inspired by what was happening. So I don't even think, I'm sure there were points where, and I remember being self-conscious about like, this is a really big decision. I hope I'm making the right one, right? And I remember actually calling my dad and asking him, and he said, look, you are not the smartest person in the room. You need to get the smartest people in the room, and that's your staff. That's who, they're the ones getting paid the big bucks. Believe you me, city councilors aren't making that big.
Yeah.
So bring the smartest people in the room and ask them those questions. And like, that's how you're going to learn. And I think that was great advice. And it really helped me get through those times where, because there were some decisions that we made that people did not like. And there were moments where I was attacked personally for the decisions that I made. Crying, it was awful. There's some times where you just can't believe how mean people can be.
And you work so hard and try to do the right thing.
Yeah.
I love that you were able to respond when there was an editorial cartoon that was insulting to you, that you were able to kind of have the last word, by writing a pretty short, very succinct newspaper column about it. And that must have felt great. Kind of like, it's like I said, it's like, that's your own voice. And that's the last word on that.
Yeah. I was lucky Bob Verbanovic gave me that opportunity too, because he didn't have to. And there were people writing op-eds all over the place for me, and I was grateful for that. But I did want at the end of the day to be able to say, like, this isn't who I am. And, I will say too, when I was younger, my dad was always in cartoons. He loved to travel as the mayor of Ottawa and he had big ideas. And so he was always in the cartoons and he actually would frame them and he had them up in his office. So I think, you have to have a little bit of
sense of
humor.
Yes. What a great role model to have. So that this last, this thing that comes up and pops into your life, and now social media, it's popping into your face, from any angle. To understand that base knowledge of having seen your mentor be like, oh, it's no big deal.
Well, he would get letters. I remember he'd say, so he'd get letters and he'd have to read them and then write back to them. Wow. It's way different than in a tweet where, and I do think social media is, it can be very effective, but yeah, thank you. That's about right.
When you're a counselor, or maybe you saw this with your dad, do you not feel like you're being pulled in? Like there's constantly somebody saying, look over here, now look over here at you, and you're being pulled in all these different directions all the time.
Yeah. And I think I really struggled with that my first 4 years. I think, and I remember the first 2 years, I lost a lot of votes. I just wasn't playing I shouldn't say it was because it's not a game, but I wasn't learning how, or not that I was, how do I put this nicely? There's a lot to a decision. And I think I thought I could try to do a lot of different things and then realized very quickly that you get one chance and that's the budget. And at the end of the day, money is where it all comes down to. So you need to make sure that the projects that are important are in that budget. And I think we in Waterloo do a 1-year budget and then we do a 3-year budget. So if you're not in that, it's really hard to get projects that you're passionate about or the game-changing city building decisions made. And so that, I think that was a real learning curve for me and and that's why I stayed for the second term in that capacity, because I really wanted to get those projects put through. Uptown Streetscape, of course, see the end of the LRT, which of course ended up going after me, but some of those projects I thought, and like Waterloo Park has always been a little bit of sort of a passion project for me, because when I first came in, it was just in bad shape, and it needed some investment.
I
and
spent a lot of time there with my kids. I know.
Yeah. But have you seen it lately?
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, baby. Yeah. I love it.
Were you part of that whole process that was sort of surveying people that would use it and sending out all that planning information?
Yeah, I mean, our staff are incredible. Our staff, they are our staff.
They are
our
our staff.
community. Yeah. I mean, they definitely put all the execution in there, but I think it was really important to everybody in this community to actually start to see what we could do with Waterloo Park. It's not just a slab of land that, I think we needed to think bigger about it, but yeah.
Was it eye-opening to be a counselor? And what I mean is there's a couple things. One is Mike Farwell sometimes talks about dirty little clubs that exist in politics out there. And also a man came up to me one time in the parking lot, and he reads my newspaper column, and he went on this rant. He said, "You should write about the group of 10, right?" And I said, "What's the group of 10? He said, "There's 10 developers in this city and they control everything," right? And he went on and on like that. And I wasn't following what he meant by it. But anyways, there must be things when you become a counselor where you go, "Oh, that's how this works," kind of thing along the way. Yeah. You don't have to say anything specific. I was just saying it must have been kind of like the pulling back a curtain and seeing how some things work.
I think that is one of the big reasons why I work so hard on the women's campaign schools and encouraging more people to run or get involved in municipal politics. Because I do think that, it's very obvious when you look at the color and sex of most of the politicians that we need to have more voices at the table. So I think it in a sense, it drives me. It takes a while to figure out that those players and those games, I hope that it's changing. I feel like it is changing in this community. I think, I went to the Black Lives Matter protest in Kitchener, Waterloo, or what Kitchener actually is, downtown Kitchener, and it was incredible to see. Laura May Lindo speaking, she's incredible. And I just feel like there's things changing. And then, talking about getting more people on boards, and the police board is now currently looking for somebody. And we're having really intentional conversations about who we want to be in power at the city. And I think to me, that's, instead of getting discouraged, I've always kind of been a glass half full girl. And I think those are the people, that's the movement I want to see myself with. And so instead of working hard to wiggle my way into those sort of power structures that I wasn't born here. I'm not a Mennonite. There's a lot of things that, I didn't go to UW. So there's a lot of cliques that I'll never be a part of because I'm just not from here. But I'm passionate about, I love this city. I love Uptown. And so I'll always come out for anything like that, women's empowerment and, seeing new voices on speaking. I mean, Women's March, we tried to have all new people speaking out, all new faces.
Yeah, well, I've been with my girls and it's been wonderful. And we've always learned something.
Yeah. So I think, that's that's it. And so I'm not going to spend too much time worrying about those cliques that I'd never be invited to anyway.
I love the idea of that Film Folk Festival that suffered from terrible timing.
Yeah.
It was supposed to launch. And something I really appreciated that Brian Burke said when we had him on as guests. Sarah, do you remember this? How he said when he left City Council, he decided it was time to leave, and he thought, there's too many people in here that are like me. He goes, "You've got enough of me."
He said something like, "There's a lot of people that look like me. We need to change it."
Yeah, I'm gonna give my chair up and I'll go do something else, kind of thing. And I love that idea.
Yeah, me too.
Because I believe in term limits as well. I don't think people
Yeah.
should sit on council for decades.
I know and I will tell you, after 8 years, I was done. I was burnt out. I think you have to come in with fresh ideas, a fresh perspective. That's what makes you valuable to this community. After 8 years, I don't know how people can continue on. I talked to a lot of politicians about it because there was a point going into the sixth, seventh year where you have to start to make those decisions. And I remember actually having I was getting quite sad and depressed around how much work it was. And I was doing the same amount I was doing a year ago, 2, 3, 4 years ago, but it felt harder. It felt heavier. I was having the same conversations. I was trying to push the same things, and it's exhausting. I think the only way to continue on is you detach yourself from those things. And then if you are detached, then why are you doing it? Then you don't have that same passion that drives you to make or to hopefully do what's right for your community, because there should be no other reason for you to be there.
But what I love is that instead of detaching, you actually replaced, I'm not using the right word here. What's the word I'm looking for? Reallocated. You actually reallocated your energy into getting really involved in the causes that matter to you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I think, well, I can't, I'm not a person who can sit around very much. It's just
Me
not,
neither.
it's, we were talking about maternity leave. I was not good at it. There was, I lived up on Bridgeport at that point, just across the street from the Bridgeport, around the corner from the Hoother. That was one of the houses we lived in. And, Kennedy was born January 21st. So it was a cold winter.
It's cold and lonely with a baby in the house.
And I'd put her in the baby Bjorn and I would do up my maternity jacket, which I could now fit around both her and I.
Yeah.
And I'd go down and buy Globe and Mail, and there was a place, a little variety store. And there was an Iranian guy that ran it, and he was awesome. And we would talk foreign policy and politics for like a half an hour every day. And it was like, I couldn't wait to get up. I was like, I'm not even going to shower today. I can't wait to get down. And we'd
see what he's got to say today.
Yeah, we'd read. Sometimes we'd read the paper together, as long as Kennedy was asleep, jumping around. But yeah, so I've always been a busybody, and I just feel like use your energy for good, right? Yeah.
So you can sleep at night.
Yeah.
This life you've carved out for yourself here is really something impressive. It really, Sara was saying, you kind of see it and go, oh, what am I doing?
Yeah. I've had that same feeling when we've had some incredibly talented artists or very successful musicians or artists that we've talked to on the podcast. And then I'm like, geez, what have I been doing with my time?
Well, I think a lot of these people just, they've got a vision and they don't seem to stop. They're relentless and you just go and go and go.
And there has to be a level of you believe in yourself, really.
Yeah.
Melissa, do you believe in
That's
yourself?
you.
Do I believe in myself? I know you're saying like self-confidence. I think there's a point where you just have to believe in yourself enough. And I think too, the one thing I continue to put into my brain and try to remember every day, like I'm just so, I have to keep educating myself, right? So like that is a huge part of it as well, because you can always be better.
You can always be learning.
Right?
Yeah.
Always be learning. Always
if you're
be
not
better.
learning, what are you doing?
Yeah. And I think this pandemic has been a real, and also to refocus stuff too. I mean, the one thing I keep asking people, like, what's the one thing you're not going to change when we go back? Like, what is it? I'd be curious to hear what your things are, because I don't know if you've had this conversation. I haven't heard you.
I've had a different pandemic experience where I'm working more than ever, and it's a different type of drain. Like I'm not having this. This is my 100th book I've read, or here's what we're doing on our lazy Sunday afternoon. I haven't had that experience, so I think what I'll change is trying to work less.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
There are things I absolutely love about it.
Yeah.
Love it. Yeah. Certain things. I love there's no door-to-door solicitors.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
And I could go on, but just things that I never wanted to do in the first place. And suddenly I'm free in a way that it's actually taken away a lot of my problems. Mm-hmm. It's just like, that problem's solved.
Yeah.
I just got out of a wedding I never wanted to go to. Just stuff like that. Wow.
The introvert journey.
If someone could have told me at the beginning of the year that, hey, all these things that are coming, they're all just going to...
You don't have to do them.
Something's going to just take them all away. And I think, well, could that be?
Yeah.
An earthquake?
What about you, Melissa?
Well, so for me, and I think family dinners. And I think, on a couple of boards of directors and, news conferences happen at like late at night. And there's often times where and city council was Monday night. 6 o'clock news didn't until 7. So family dinner has always been an interesting thing for me to work out with my family, because I think it's really important to share a meal.
The most important thing for a family.
The conversations, like that's how your children start to learn to debate. And we love to debate in my house. We love politics. We still get the record delivered to our door every single morning, and we open the paper up and we have breakfast, like those sort of habits that we have that formed. But somewhere along the way, and I think it's just because like I was a reporter, so I did work late, and then I was a city councilor, and there's meetings that happen at night, and I just stopped. And because it wasn't part of my life anymore, I didn't realize, that Saturday and Sunday wasn't good enough. I need to do it 7 days a week. And this pandemic has afforded me to really think about that again. And I think that, to me, I'll be so grateful for. And I've got to be really cautious as we roll back into real life again.
As soon as you start to let one slip, they all slip.
Right. So for me, and so, so you say sort of that but I do need to refocus because family is so important. My kids are 13 and 11 right now. It's the greatest ages. And so, there's always places where you can put more energy and do a better job. And I think that's the best lesson I've learned from the pandemic.
Hey all, thanks for meeting us in Bonn Park. Please like, rate, and subscribe to our podcast on the platform that you're listening to. And follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Bonn Park Podcast. Original music by Alan Lung.